They should be able to hear us.
All right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's good to be back. I was just checking on a couple of things. Making sure that we're live. I know we're live on Facebook. You just never know.
We're live, though.
We are live.
Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome back. Today's class was on the consequences associated with the covenant, both the good and the bad. Very clear. I think it's a consistent message. I know it's a consistent message throughout the Hebrew Bible, beginning in the Torah and going all the way through the prophets. Never, to my knowledge, does the Bible say that you'll be blessed if you don't keep this way. And the opposite is also the true, that, you know, you're not going to be cursed if you do this. Again, doesn't mean bad things don't happen, but it's very clear, very consistent. I think this message is one that ought to be proclaimed from the rooftops, if you will, because so much misunderstanding has been put forward by religious teachers. And, I go back and forth. People often wonder, is it intentional? I don't know that. I don't want to make that judgment. I just know that people, I think, are somewhat confused. So our job is to live our life in such a way that we follow these teachings to the best of our ability, knowing that if we fail, that God is able to forgive us and willing to forgive us. So what are some of your thoughts?
Well, if you read the whole first part of the Bible, leading up to Deuteronomy, when God says, Moses says, look, I was talking to God, and this is what he said, and I'm supposed to make this plain. A lot of that is covered by example in the first books of the Bible. In other words, if you go through there and you look, let's take this, let's take the next, commandment, and go on down to, and these are my judgments and all that. And you look at all that stuff, and you look at everybody that played a part in the early part of the scriptures. That is a culmination of everything that went on that says this is what you do that's good and this is what you do that's bad. I've got tons of examples of that. Now, some of it, to me, is intuitively obvious. You go down through there. Oh, thou shalt not murder, steal. So if you do those things, is that going to bring good things to your doorstep? Let's think about that one a second. You kill somebody, they got tons of family, they're all now out to get you. You sleep with your mother-in-law. That can't be good. Or your sister or whatever. These things, some of it.
Societal norms.
We could sit here and say, okay, it's intuitively obvious, but maybe it wasn't. And whether it is or it's not, it's made clear in Deuteronomy and very plain and very straightforward.
Yeah.
And some of it, we don't, I myself. It's very powerful. And some of the things, you feel like, well, I don't understand that. In other words, like, some of the things, you won't eat this and you will eat that. I don't understand that, so, that doesn't make sense to me because I know better. Well, maybe you do and maybe you don't. Because...
Yeah, we're not always given a reason as to why we do or don't do something.
But if you get to a position where you think you know, maybe you don't know. Maybe there's a higher power that knows a little bit more than you do. And sometimes, because Dad said, don't do this because I don't want you eating junk food or whatever.
Right.
There's a good reason for that. And medical science, even today, may not know what that is.
Right.
But what clicked that for me is I was watching some shows earlier, and there are people that were relatively famous that were very healthy, and then later in life got these really bad diseases, and you feel real sorry for them. And then I thought, well, maybe it's stuff they were eating their whole life that made, I don't know.
Yeah.
All I do know is that for the rest of what's in Deuteronomy, that's clear that if you follow that, this is good. And if you don't, it's bad. And some of the things what I don't understand, maybe you should take that leap of faith and go, yeah, I should probably do that.
The things,
that's the right thing to do.
the things within our power,
Yeah.
you know, the things within our power, the things that are clear, the things that are revealed, we should do them. There are things that, you know, I might read and say, I'm not even sure how I would keep that, or what is it really saying? Well, if you get across, you know, if you come up on something like that, then, you know, but by the same token, there are certain commands that that can't be done, you know, or that they're not for you. They might be for a priest or for this or for that. You know, a non-Jew can look at it and say, well, I'm not Jewish, I don't have... Now, ultimately, again, Isaiah 2, Micah 4, many other passages, Isaiah 56, indicate that ultimately the Torah, the teaching, will go forth to all the nations. So ultimately, I think that these things... We were talking about Shabbat before the service, and Shabbat is a clear example. You know, people say, well, God just really... People always want to help God, you know, tell you why He did something. God just wanted us to have a day off, so you can pick any day, or every day belongs to God. Yes, every day belongs to God. However, He set one day, a specific day, to be holy. And it doesn't mean that you should only do your good things or your religious things or your, you know, whatever on the Sabbath. Do those, it's a life, it's a walk.
Yeah.
But that day is holy, so, you know, we ought to think about those kind of things. But
Yeah, a lot of them are, a lot of what you're talking about is especially like the Ten Commandments. There's a lot of moral issues there. Can you be moral without even knowing those? I guess you could.
Yeah.
Somewhat. You could be a moral human being. You wouldn't kill people. And so on and so forth. But as far as like worshiping other gods, that might be a little tricky.
Yeah.
The Sabbath, you know, what does that mean? You know, so I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah. You keep 7 out of 10 of them.
Yeah.
You know, what's your ratio?
70%. Is that a C, a D?
Yeah, just some blessings, and I think it's kind of right up
Well,
there. I don't know. You know,
I don't see. I understand the premise of there are blessings and curses, and if you obey, there are blessings. If you disobey, there are curses. But I don't see it as like a hard.
an off-on switch.
Yeah,
Yes or
a formula.
Yes or no?
Because you know that bad things happen to good people.
Yeah.
Bad things happen to righteous people.
Oh, yeah.
And to your point, John, I know somebody who's Torah observant, a friend, mutual friend, who recently, I mean, she eats right, she exercises, she's, you know, a righteous person, and she experienced a heart attack. And so I think back to the times with me when I had this so-called gallbladder attack a couple of years ago, and it put me in the bed and was very painful, and it humbled me, and it made me cry out to Jehovah and seek with all my heart
Yeah.
why and what I needed to do, and that to me, that was the blessing.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I was enduring physical pain, but in the midst of this pain, I cried out to Him, and it corrected my course, if you would. So I see this as these are the guidelines, and the whole thing about faith and love of Jehovah, and like you said, doing it with all your heart and your might,
Yeah.
is that even if you've done something in ignorance or not known, that you can call out to Jehovah and He will answer you and He will show you. And in my case, it was almost intuitive, but I believe it was directed by Him to realize that a prescription the doctor had prescribed for me was wrong, and this was the cause partially, but in the other, it was real test of faith.
People tend to look at this and they go, oh, so you're saying if I keep the commandments that nothing bad will happen, it's only good. That's not what this is saying. Look at David, for instance, the life of David in the Bible. A man after God's own heart. Now, he made mistakes, but even apart from those mistakes, If you read the Psalms of David, not all Psalms are attributed to David, but if you read the Psalms of David, you get a feel for his character and so forth, and he had times of melancholy, had times of depression, times where he's down, times where his enemies are surrounding him, and Jeremiah, look at Jeremiah, you know, so we can't say, and what we're not saying is that everything's going to be beautiful and never promised you a rose garden kind of thing, you know. That along life's daily journeys, we live in a world in which we still suffer. There are diseases, there are death. Now, there are some who would say, well, if we just follow every commandment, you won't have any diseases. And people quote Exodus 15, you know, and I will put none of these diseases on you and so forth. I mean, look, I like to think that way too, but at the same time, I recognize that there are times where in the world in which we live, in the state of things in which we dwell, there are bad things that happen. We still have death and suffering and so forth.
And it's not a lack of faith. It's
Right.
to not be healed. I've had people, good meaning people, to say, well, you're not healed because you don't have enough faith.
Yeah.
Which is totally...
Amy just pointed out Job is a great example of this, you know. And then the other thing it doesn't say is it doesn't cast doubt on Jehovah's faithfulness either. You know, and it's easy to say when everything is going beautifully. Man, I'm so blessed, you know. And then God forbid if something tragic happens, then we're put in this quandary where we go, what did I do? How did I fail? What is the reason for this? Look, life happens to everyone, and we have various things happen. But as a general rule, now these are given nationally, but at the same time, individually, you know. So we should seek to live our lives according to the way, with or without. This is the rabbinic standpoint about you don't do it for the reward. You do it because you should do it. I would say you do it with all your heart, with all your soul, knowing that when you fail, if you fail, and you will, you are able to go to God and say, I made a mistake. I didn't. Doesn't mean that something bad you're experiencing can be tied directly to the bad. But, you know, I always examine. If something bad happens, I always do think about that. Wait a minute.
Yeah, because
Did I do something wrong?
one of the little jokes with my children is you know, we're messing around with something and cut a board or something, see if it fits. And my favorite thing to say is, well, we're going to find out how you're living.
Yeah,
if you're living
that's right.
right, if you're living right or not, you know,
Yeah.
things fall together just right.
That's right.
No, you must not be
That's a
living
good
right.
point.
You know,
Yeah.
we always
Some
kid
people couldn't cut a board.
No.
Yeah.
Must not be living right.
Yeah.
Or accidentally cut it right. You know, it's like. You know, so-
And we have a tendency, using that same analogy, Dave, that when somebody, let's say something happens to them, either they get sick or
Football
a
team
tragedy
loses or
or
something.
whatever, we'll go, well, there must be sin in the camp.
Yeah.
You
That's
see,
Job
God's
101
yeah.
right there, yeah.
You got to, you know, because we were
Gotta be.
looking for answers.
Yeah.
But there is also this idea that comes out in Scripture, and I love this passage. You know, it's used in a couple of different ways, variously worded. Though he slay me, yet will I serve him. You know, it's almost
Isn't that
like,
Job?
yeah. Look, in Daniel, you know, in the book of Daniel, it also mentions this idea. You know, when they're going to throw the boys into the fire, and they're like, look, we're not bowing down to that idol. Our God can save us. But if he doesn't, we're still not, you know. So we have to have that attitude. You know, I'm constantly reminded that even when bad occurs in our life, you know, either directly, immediately to us or to our loved ones or whatever, we still maintain the cause, you know. And it's difficult, you know. I'm speaking from one who's not experienced, and I hope I don't. You know, the thing that I like to think about when I think towards other people is, may you only see the good in your life. May you only see blessings. May you only have good things. But the truth is, sometimes that's not life.
Right. May the wind be at your back.
That's that Irish proverb. I love that.
Well, still, that's not gonna, that's great. That's a great saying and everything, and it's true. But
Yep.
there's gonna be times when the wind's at your face. You got to fight the wind.
Yep.
That's just part of it.
And
I
it
think
builds
by being
strength.
obedient, you have the ability to face that
Yep.
a lot better.
Yep.
Whether
Yes.
to say, "Oh no, I must have messed
Yes.
up. I should have messed up. I messed up." Instead of worrying about that, just go ahead and
Well,
Yep.
you can't
See
get-
adversity as something put there to strengthen.
Yeah,
So-
you have to
Stronger.
have the rain to get the flowers.
Sure.
You people a lot of times will, using the weather analogy. I happen to like rain, but people often will look at the weather and say, "Oh man, this is horrible weather. And this is weather." It's part of the process. We have the good, we have the quote unquote bad, but all of it works together somehow. And so in our lives. And this is not something I tell someone who suffered tragedy, because I don't think, most often when we offer words that are meant to heal, we probably say things that we didn't think through properly. Because people a lot of times will say, well, everything works together for good. Well,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe that, because sometimes things are just bad and there's no answer
Sometimes a
for them.
compassionate thing to say to someone who's going something is like, man, that really sucks.
a good example would be, something you do wrong to somebody else and it comes back to bite you or haunt you, Whereas you have the ability to realize I did something wrong or I said something wrong, and you can fix that.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Unless it's just something crazy. I mean, not all the time, but
Uh-huh.
a lot of times you can fix that, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about here in this whole talk is that, it really is plain. It's a plain deal.
That's right.
It's a marketing idea that's plain.
And
Yep.
even with the best intent, I have faith in God, but the rules and judgments that are laid out are very clear. It's a go, no go, yes or no, 1 or 0. There's no, well, I can get 90% of it. That's
I
not.
love that Ross put it, you're either in or you're out.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
with the best intent, though, sometimes you can get blindsided.
Look, Vicky posted this. I think in a public setting, I will not always say amen. This crowd.
Right, right. I'm
It's
right there
like
with
you
you.
ever been in a group and somebody says something and,
Everybody-
amen, and some of us might be like, oh,
When
no.
they say, everybody close your eyes,
Yeah.
I'm the one with the eyes open.
Yeah,
Now,
looking
You
around.
have to trust somebody really,
Yeah.
really a lot before you do that one.
Yeah.
The other day, I grabbed a can of soup off the shelf in the cupboard. And my fault, I didn't read the ingredients. It was a can of split pea soup, so I put it in there, heated it up in the
Oh, it had
microwave.
ham in it.
Well, you couldn't see that
Yeah.
until I went to scoop that little tiny sliver of pancake. I said, "Ooh, wait a minute. There's
Yeah.
pork in this. I didn't even have to go dig fish the can out
Yeah.
of the garbage. It's like there's pork
Oh
in
my
this.
Yep.
gosh.
But if it was small enough and you didn't see it, or you didn't know that some pork product was in there,
Oh yeah.
did you break the law, or you just get on the wrong side of it by no
Ignorance of the law is no excuse. You're
That's
going to hell,
right.
John.
I understand that.
Man,
But God also said, if you're penitent in your heart,
I was.
that you would
That's
be
why you
forgiven.
got to watch tortillas, pie shells you buy. All that stuff has lard.
A funny thing happened, and I'll use me as an example. One year, I'd been in this for a long time, and was even a vegetarian at the time, and I was making s'mores. You take that graham cracker and put the chocolate, and you put the marshmallow on it, and you smash it
What
down.
for?
And someone actually told me, they said, as I've got this stuff stuck in my beard and all, there's pork in there. I said, yeah, no. I said, it's just chocolate, marshmallow, and they told me, and I thought, that is so crazy. So then fast
the
forward years and
marshmallows?
years
Yeah.
later, yeah.
sure.
My grandsons were at the house, to get two of them. Asher and Kalel were talking. And Asher, and the whole family, Ty's kids are vegetarians. So Kalel asked him, I could hear him. He said, so you're a vegetarian? Asher said, yep. He said, have you ever eaten meat? He said, yeah, I used to, but we don't anymore. And he said, oh. And he said, well, have you ever, since you were a vegetarian, did you ever like get some meat. And he said, well, not intentionally. And Kalel said, what do you mean? He said, well, I was eating one day, and he described the same thing. He was eating a marshmallow, and somebody told him that, and Kalel said, what? You mean to tell me they have pork and, you know, because see.
Or worse.
Yeah.
Or worse.
Yeah, or worse. Anyway, so I'm not teaching on diet today, but just as a thought, you know, it's like we ought to be looking for opportunities and ways to follow the teaching, I believe, every way that we can. And when we realize that we're doing something and, I shouldn't be doing that, you change. See, that's what Ezekiel 18 is all about. Ezekiel 18 is very powerful, so is Ezekiel 33. Very clearly, those are two chapters in the Bible which communicate how it is that we are to live. And like Vicki points out, even beef or chicken sausage may have a pork casing. You know, you can go buy a beef sausage and find out.
Wilshire Farms does not have pork.
No, there are some that only have the vegetable-based casing.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
you can
Same with
read the label.
marshmallows. You can get
read the
kosher
label.
marshmallows.
Yeah.
But gelatin, you know, who would have thought?
I know.
You know? But
Or what about feeding your dog or your cat? Their dog food or cat food. You got to check that
Yeah.
too, right? I mean,
well, I don't.
Oh, I'm
How
not
far we
worried
gonna
about
go
the
with
dog.
it was funny. That,
Some do though.
oh yeah,
You know
yeah.
what dogs eat?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
is it step up?
believe me, I have to guard the litter box now. That's a tasty treat. No, it's not.
Well, you just, you know, diet is something that a lot of people who associate their life with the Bible do come to the place where they begin to follow the biblical diet. And we would just say, look, the joke is in southern Louisiana, if you give up pork and crawfish and catfish and shrimp and oysters, that's pretty biblically kosher. I mean, it's hard in Louisiana to go out and eat in your regular
You can't
restaurants.
get a bean.
Yeah.
This, or that, 'cause
Yeah.
You know they cook through some lard in there. You know that.
Oh yeah, had
I
to
mean,
make it good soul food, as they call it.
Don't
So
forget the alligator.
yeah, that's right. That's right. We have all kind of unclean things. So I think one of the things that I wanted to bring up in today's teaching, it wasn't on diet. If you're just logging in, it was more general in that you have blessings for obedience and curses for disobedience, to put it quite simply. And we ought to look for ways. Think about it in this sense. It's a very positive enterprise, meaning the goal is not to give you a list and then say, if you don't do these,
Do's and don'ts. You know.
yeah, if you don't do these, you're cursed. Although that comes out. The idea goes back to Deuteronomy 5, where God says, oh, that they had such a heart in them as this, that they would keep my commandments always, and it would go well with them.
So it is a heart thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
but it's a positive message.
If your heart is right, I'll use that term. 'cause that's kinda
Wholehearted,
like-
yeah.
If your heart's right, you want to seek these things to do them right.
Yeah,
You know.
Yeah.
If your heart's not right.
You can keep all the commandments. There are going to be times when you may step over the line.
What?
And it might be through no fault of your own. You know, the door is always open to turn around and come back.
I like how you put.
There's another side of that same coin I was talking about. You could rote. It's an old musical thing. You could learn these rules.
yep,
Just then follow those rules, but your heart ain't right. You know.
Yeah.
You can be perfect in those rules, and I mean you can just go nuts over this.
Yeah.
We've seen people try this.
oh yeah.
And you know, does that work?
Straining a
work?
gnat and swallow a camel, as
Yeah.
my teacher
that
said.
could lead to.
Does that work? I
That
mean,
could lead to a
Become
looking
hard-hearted to
at
people that aren't.
to your brother
Sure.
and being harsh
It
judgment.
could actually be
like, oh,
more.
well, I'm.
It could actually be more
Look at
stressful.
me, God!
and,
I'm
you know, a
perfect
stressful
in
life.
keeping these
worried
laws.
about
and
that
I'm not
kind of
like
stuff.
that sinner over there.
Yep.
It can cause other problems. You know.
I like how you put it that the term you used was disobedience blocks the flow of blessing. That picture in my mind is easier than, oh, you got to do these rules or else.
Yeah.
It's like, do you want to block the flow or do you want to open the flow, you know?
Yeah, and it actually reverses Deuteronomy
Yeah.
28:62. It's almost like if God, people say, well, I'm not under the law. That what they're really saying is, I'm not under God's instructions. So it's a little bit different if you say it like that. But if somebody said, look, I tell you what, I want to bless you, John. I want to, if you'll follow these things, then I'm going to give you these things. That's the way we're going to work this. And you go, no, I'm not interested. No, hang on, listen. No, but I'm saying I'm going to give you these things. It's going to be good for you. It's going to help you. It's going to help develop society into a normative culture in which bad does not exist. And you're like, look, I just don't want anything to do with that. You know, it's like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. But let's take a step back from the personal, like what do I eat? Do I eat lard in my beans or whatever? And think more on a national, global level. What happens in culture, in a society, when a person murders someone? Think of all the havoc that wreaks all throughout. Not only does it, you know, it affects
The
more than just,
far-reaching
yeah.
effects, yeah.
And it's never just mano a mano. It's not just one-on-one.
Yeah.
There are implications that
Family,
reverberate.
Yeah.
You know,
The loss.
it's a ripple effect that now, and that's just our theft. You know, when someone steals something, you know, one of my sons told me the other day, he lives in a certain area in Baton Rouge, close to a college campus, and someone broke the back window of his car and got into his car and stole $50. And so he doesn't have the money to fix his car window, so he duct taped it and all that. And he came by and I said, man, I hate that. He said, I know. He said, now I just leave my doors open. You know, he said, I rarely have money in there, but he said, it just aggravates me that they had to get in my car so badly that they broke the window, you know, and he's sort of distraught. I mean, he's young, he's in school, he doesn't have money to fix this. And I don't, you know, I can't help him either. So it's, you know, put the duct tape on. But he said, yeah, I just leave it up. I said, you probably ought to just put a sign and say, please, for the love of God, don't break another window. The door's open. You know, I don't have anything, but if you must look. But, you know, think about theft and how badly our society is affected in a negative way because of crimes that are against Torah, basically, you know. So it's
Baton Rouge with murders.
yeah, yeah,
To the point of it's so out of hand. The other day I was watching the news and there was on one of the better parts of town, they're on Government, I think it was, where they have Monsieurs on the boulevard. There was a woman in
Yeah.
a shopping center. Her and her daughter came out of the store, broad daylight, middle of the day. Car went by and fired off shots, and bullets went through her car.
golly, yeah,
Broad daylight, and the cops were like, well, what do you want them to do?
yeah.
There's no way to figure out who that was.
Unless
Oh,
they
it's
have
just another
security
drive-by shooting.
cameras.
Well, that makes
yeah.
you feel good about being there.
Yeah. So, you know, when we think about the blessings and the curses, you know, the bad sometimes comes in, and often the bad that affects not only us, but our cities, our towns, our states, our nation, whatever, our world, are because of people directly working against the good. They're doing the opposite of the good. They're doing the bad in the world. See, the earth is good, Genesis 1. Very, very good. And he saw all that he had made, and it was very, very good. Tov ma'od. But what happens, though, is that there's bad. There is bad. It wasn't set up that way. Man can choose between the good and the bad. And so one of the main points about this particular Torah reading is that we are given a choice. Who is we? I'm broadening it. Some might say, well, I'm not Israelite, whatever. But imagine, you know, God presents this, and if it's you, if you are one who seeks to live your life and you claim that Jehovah is your God, that comes with a package. You know, it's not like you can just go, well, I love the Lord. Well, okay. If you love me, do as I've commanded. This is the way it comes down to. And as a result of that, you'll be blessed. But for someone to say that they love and want to serve God, but they don't follow His commands, that just doesn't go together. It's just not true. And a lot of that, let's be honest, it could very well be attributed to false teachings.
Yes,
'cause I mean,
a lot of it, I imagine.
Yeah.
You touched on that, basically, can someone do what's right in your place? That's kind of like what you talked about a little bit, is it can
Can they do it for you, you mean?
you do it for you?
Yeah,
Can
or
can-
die for your sins.
die for your sins or
Yeah.
so forth, you know? You touched on that
Yeah.
pretty good this morning. I think
Yeah.
that has a lot to do with this message here, because that's in the commandments, you know?
Yeah.
To love the God, you know, with all your heart.
Yep.
You know, don't go after other gods, so to speak.
Yeah, if you
Kind of
if
touched on that.
if you said again the analogy of someone else stepping in for you,
Good or bad. I mean,
yeah.
I look at it that way too.
yeah, Moses at times he said at one point, you know, God was upset with the children of Israel for the way that they were behaving, and He said,
Sin in
God
the
said,
camp. There's sin in
look,
the
let's take, you know, we'll start all the way over, you know, and you read the response there. That's one way to think about this. It's not the way things are done. Moses says one time, just blot me out of your book. You know, rather than just blot me out of the book. And God said, no, we're not doing that. You know, so it comes down to the person on a national level for Israel in the biblical text, and also on a personal level. We're judged based on our works, you know. It'd be like standing before the judge and, you know, and I got a ticket, by the way. I don't know how many of y'all I told, but I got caught by one of those cameras in Baker. You know, I'm driving and
You ought to never.
and I know, but I was
avoid Baker like the
I was
plague.
thinking I'm driving through and Bridget was with me
Going
and
to Baker to sin. You didn't know that.
No.
Oh, I see it. It's all
Look,
Bridget's
wait.
fault.
Me and
no,
Bridget.
but I'm
She
a-
tried to help her.
But I'm driving, and I wasn't going much over, but
know.
it was at night, and I saw the flash, because they have one of those cameras set up. It's not even fair. It's like they don't even need a police officer. But he gets my picture. And, of course, everybody in the car said, oh, man, you just got a ticket, you know. And I was like, man, golly, well, dear Lord, let them lose that. Well, they didn't lose it. I got it in the mail. But it'd be like me going to the judge and saying, you know, let's say I go to the courtroom and the judge goes, Mr. Nichols, you're here because you got caught speeding, whatever. And I go, I have good news for you. I got good news for you, Joe. What is it? Well, my wife wasn't speeding. She's going to step in for me. You can talk to her. And he go, wait a minute. What does that have to do with you speeding? Well, my wife didn't speed. And so I would like her to step in for me right now, and I'll go sit over here. No.
Or she'll take the penalty for me.
Yeah.
She'll take the ticket for
Yeah,
me.
that ain't going to
Give her
happen.
the
Yeah,
fault.
that's right. But you see the idea, and I'm not making fun of what people believe. What I'm saying, it's more important to understand there are consequences associated with our actions, both good and bad. And so what we have to do is be very careful. Deuteronomy puts it this way all the time. It's guard your soul. Like you should be very careful. You should work very hard to live your life, and we should work very hard to live our life in such a way that we're not violating God's commands. And as we learn things that are wholesome and good, you know, that's kind of the idea of being tamim, upright and
And
complete.
being saved.
Yeah,
I think Paul
yeah.
Miller said an interesting thing that I had not heard before, Paul.
All right,
Salvation is not about being saved.
all right,
So I had to think about that one for a minute.
yeah.
But if Jehovah is my light and my salvation, that means He has the way. He has the way to live, the way to be, and the words.
Yeah.
And that if that salvation is available for me to walk in it, it's a way. It's
Yeah.
a way of life.
Yeah, and that's the thing that it's not an instantaneous, you say a few words and you're in.
Yeah.
You commit yourself to a certain life. You know, you say, I want to live in accordance with God's ways. I love Jehovah. I want to serve Jehovah. He is my God.
Mm-hmm.
And God's response in Deuteronomy is, okay, if I'm your God and then you'll be my people and you'll keep my ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that way. It's not like, well, I guess I want to, you know, I don't want to go to hell when I die. I want to go to heaven.
Get out of
Well,
hell, free
that's
card.
the marketing scheme, you know, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Christianity says, don't worry about this life. You know, it's bad. We're not supposed to be here anyway. We're concerned about your eternal life.
Yeah, the next one.
Yeah, the next life.
Yeah.
When you're going to go to, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
We got good news for you.
Right.
You know the story. What we're talking about here is now.
Yeah,
You know, this is what we got.
live in the
As
now.
far as I know, this is all we have.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
No, that's right.
No.
According to what Jehovah said, if you don't get it right here, you don't even worry about that. Don't
Yeah.
go there.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
So I mean, that's kind of the marketing, if I'm going to use that term. When we first started doing this Torah base,
yeah,
we were like, our marketing plan's just bad. Why
Yeah.
can't we get people in here to join us? Because it's not a good. You know, we don't have no promise of a future life. We have no. We
Yeah.
have all that. We don't have any of that.
you don't
stuff.
have the same template, and even though there are passages which talk about those kind of things, they're not as prevalent
Right.
in the Hebrew Bible.
And I think some of the talk you get, the teaching you gave this morning, really clears a lot of that up, because you know, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, that's what's important, to be blessed. We want to be blessed. We don't want to be
Yeah.
cursed. We want to be a blessing. We don't want to be a curse.
Right.
We don't want to. We don't want to be snake bit, as we
Yeah.
call it. You know, in
Yeah.
the tree industry, you just don't want to be around anybody that is snake bit.
Yep,
You know.
that's
So
right.
you know,
Yeah, I
Well,
think.
the God of creation said, if you do all this, you will live,
Yeah,
and you will.
that's right. That's right. He's the God of the living. So
yeah.
you'll never die, so to speak.
Well, Dave and I have had a lot of conversations about this subject, and it is important. We're not diminishing any hope, as the Bible puts it,
Right.
of a future existence. What we're saying, though, is the Bible puts a lot of emphasis on the now. You know, like people say, well, I can't wait to go to heaven or to be in the other life or in the world to come where everything is magically made perfect or whatever. But our goal is really one of roll up the sleeves, get engaged, and live your life now. Live it
Enter
now.
into life
Enter
now.
enter now and be that person that changes in a positive way the world around you. We need to be engaged and involved in all these different outlooks and expressions of how do we live our life. But, you know, if there is, to your point, Dave, let's say you go, well, I'm not sure there is. Well, can we say for certain that there is? You know, I don't know personally anyone who's ever crossed and come back. I know some people might say they have, I don't know. But what we do know is we have things that we're supposed to do now. And that's the way we ought to do it.
Yeah.
So go with what you know, live in the now, and live in a way. Now I'm only talking to people who say, I want to live for Jehovah. He's my God. I want to live my life accordingly. If somebody goes, well, I'm listening to you, Ross, and I don't care about it. I don't even believe in God. I can't put another God in front of your God because I don't even believe in your God. Well, that's a different group. What would I ask them to do? Well, I would ask you to obey by the laws of your city and your state and your nation.
Civil law.
Civil laws, good ethical things. Don't murder, don't steal. And they might say, well, I don't do any of those things. Well, good. How you doing? Nice to meet you.
I have friends that, you know, they're morally good. They don't need this to
Yeah.
live a moral life.
Right.
They're good civil citizens.
And I
you
like
don't have
that.
to be scared around them.
That's
Yeah,
right.
No problem
They're not
with
going to take your wallet.
that.
You know, you
They're
can
actually
trust.
following, you know, they could possibly be following a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, they
Except
don't
for
do
the one,
the food and the Sabbath. and all
except
that
for
stuff,
the
yeah.
one that says,
The religious laws.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am the Lord your God.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and
I understand.
have no other
Understand.
gods before me.
But even in
Your
that,
own
it's a
your God.
choice.
Yeah.
See, it's a choice because you know, it's not like you can go out and knock on doors and say, you know, hey, I'd like to tell you about Jehovah. Have you, you know, and people might say, no, I don't know anything about that. Bam, I'm not interested. You know, it could, but if through our actions, you know, and living in the way that the Bible describes it is, you're going to live in such a way that people around you go, what a wise and understanding people that is. You know, they have a God near to them.
Why is his countenance always good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why
Amy
is he-
Johnson has a good statement. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, then parentheses, why not salvation?
Right.
And to me, from the discussion we've had today even, to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness is salvation.
Yeah, in a
That's
way,
the path of
and
life.
that's a good point Amy brings up because if we talked about the kingdom 2 weeks in a row,
Mm-hmm.
and then now we're into this idea about the righteousness. You know, righteousness. Deuteronomy 6:25. These things will be righteousness for you. So when people say otherwise, so what are we looking for? That's a great way to kind of think about this. Seek God's kingdom and His righteousness. Not the righteousness which is of man, but the righteousness of God. And the righteousness of God is tied to the Torah, see?
Yes.
Whereas most people, many people believe that it's not tied to the Torah, that it's based on belief alone. Belief. In other words, they translate faith as belief. But emunah is your faithfulness. To what? According to Habakkuk, you know, what's he talking about? The righteous will live by his faith. Meaning his faithfulness, his adherence to the teachings of God, or his righteousness. It's a totally different outlook. It's a different approach. So,
Like you implied, the Torah is a contract.
yeah,
It's like when you get married, both parties make an agreement with each other. I mean, when you go be with Jehovah, I mean, he says, you do this, and I'll do this.
yeah,
You agree. And you go, yes. Hey, it's a done deal. It's just like that.
yeah. That's right. And people violate a marriage covenant just like they violate the covenant with God. It is a good analogy. Sometimes
And
people
the
do.
thing is, though, it depends on what of that's violated. The other party can say, okay, if you know,
You're going to keep acting like that?
then you're done. But if not, and you're serious, then all's good.
Yeah.
God says the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the beautiful thing, I encourage people to read Ezekiel 18 and 33, and in both of those chapters, lay that out very clearly. A righteous person who turns from their righteousness and commits iniquity and basically says, I'm through, I'm not going to live like that anymore, and that person, when they die, none of their righteous deeds are remembered. Like you go, well, remember, Judge, I was good for 12 years there in a row. Like I was just following this Torah and, you know, I was good and but I don't even know you kind of thing, see? But the other side of that is when a person who lives wickedly, who doesn't follow the teachings, when that person says, I want to follow God's ways, you're in. But see, you're in or you're out. That's really the truth. Doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. That's not my point. You're not going to like walk on water and, you know, never make a mistake. That's not what I'm advocating. What I'm advocating is a decision point where you say, I want to follow fully after Jehovah. I want to live my life in accordance with his teachings. And then you set forward to do that. You really, you know, you make an effort. When you fail and you discover, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, whatever, then you just make a correction and you say, forgive me, for I didn't realize it, or I was foolish, or I made a mistake and I won't do it again. And you make amends. See, that's what the prophets are saying. They're saying, look, God knows we've messed up. That's not the question. and He's gracious and merciful and long-suffering. But He just wants us to turn. Just turn. Stop doing the bad. Start doing the good. And as you said, it'll be okay.
Heal the world.
Yep.
The prophet said that to the kings of Israel too. If you will get rid of these idols,
Yep.
God will take care of your enemies.
Yep.
He'll do it all.
That's
He will
right.
Do it. And so, well, there you go.
That's right.
All right, so forgiveness of sins.
Mm-hmm.
How do we deal with that as far as we kind of looked at some of that? My idea is that if we do wrong, if a person does wrong, and they turn, they decide they realize they're doing wrong, they turn and do it. Yeah, sins can be forgiven or forgotten. Consequences can't.
Right.
Not all the time. Sometimes it depends.
Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go out and slay a bunch of people, yeah, you're gonna,
Can't
they
undo
can't be
that.
forgiven. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to touch on that a little bit.
No, it's a good
forgiveness of
point.
Sins and
One thing that people don't realize is that we, as humans, have the capacity to forgive another person. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying we always do it. I'm not saying that I've always been good at it.
Right.
But the point is, if I wrong John and John wants to, he can forgive me. I'll give you an example. John and I work together during the week sometimes. Let's say he leaves his wallet here and he goes out, and I go to his wallet because I need something, and I get some money out.
you got to make sure it's John's wallet first. Though.
Well, if I just see it laying there and I pick it up, but let's say I take $20.
Right.
Now, you know this, people know this, but repentance is not me in my bed tonight saying, "Dear Lord, forgive me for stealing John's money."
Yeah.
And then God says, "Oh, yeah,
You can
that's
do
okay."
that.
Yeah,
It might
but
help you from not stealing
You know.
Billy Bob's money.
but it doesn't resolve the issue.
No.
Now, if I come back and I want to slip the money in, but John's come and got his wallet already, now I have to go get this right and say, "John, look, I don't know what came over me. I saw it. It was tempting, and I took the money. Here it is. I apologize. I shouldn't have done it. Please forgive me." Now, you might say, "Man, I never would have suspected that. I can't be around you anymore. Who would have thought, whatever." Or you might say, "Hey, it's okay. Do you need that money?" I mean, in other words, there are ways to respond and react, but repentance is more than just confessing. Now, even in the Torah, even in the midst of all the sacrifices in the book of Numbers, one of the things that it says is that the person who has offended, who has transgressed, will confess those things. Not necessarily to a priest or to someone, but to say, "Look, I've done this wrong. I apologize," and you can then go, and often, many cases, things that we do wrong, make restitution, and then you come back, right? So the idea is that there's more to it than just saying, "Yeah, I'm sorry for breaking your law." But again, then we have other situations. It's determined by circumstances, like in Psalm 51.
It's all individual.
In a way, now David has committed this grievous crime. He's taken
And it
the
can't
wife
be
of
fixed.
Uriah. It
It
can't be
can't be
fixed.
fixed.
Uriah is dead. And he's already taken Bathsheba. She's pregnant. In Psalm 51 is this story. And he tells God, he says it like this, "Against you have I sinned." Right? Well, it was way beyond that. I mean, it was a sin against these other people and the family, and think of the whole mess.
Yeah.
But ultimately, all sin is violation against God.
Sure.
So at its deepest source. But between us and God in the violation, there are oftentimes countless individuals whose lives are affected by our wrongdoing. So it's the consequences thereof that bring about all the bad. So really, if you just do what's right, it'll go well with you. I mean, this is the message of the Bible. And you don't have all this destruction and hurt and bad along the way.
I mean, I really have the faith that if you do something that can't be fixed and you still turn, at least, what's left of your life, it can still go good in a way.
Yeah.
It don't have to go as bad. In other words.
Right.
You can make it right with God, but you've
Yeah.
also got the man.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you may owe a debt
Right.
that may
Yeah.
have to cost you your life.
Right.
Yeah, or go to prison.
Taylor-
Or in David's case,
Yeah.
he couldn't build a temple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That's a
he
good example.
is-
That's a good
Yep.
example.
the consequences. of having
Taylor,
blood on his hands.
Karina writes, Deuteronomy 29:8. This is the way the Torah portion ends today. Therefore, observe faithfully all the terms of the covenant, that you may succeed in all that you undertake. This is wisdom. And that really is true. It's the idea that wisdom is achieved when you do the covenant. Now remember the first sin, all the way back in Genesis chapter 3, when the woman saw that the forbidden fruit was able to make one wise, she took of it. And look what that did. She sought wisdom apart from the Torah, apart from following the commands, and it brought about great havoc. So what I would encourage people to think about is, if you want wisdom, wisdom properly attained brings life and good and blessing. Wisdom brought through violating God's ways, and that brings about bad, right? Ultimately, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really it's an appeal to God's people. This message is really only to those that want to serve God. Like, this isn't evangelical. Like, you wouldn't go out on the street and people go, well, I wish I could just preach this. Well, this is a message for the community. This is a message for the family that has associated their life with God. And it's basically, this is not something that, like, you're going to save all the sinners. What Moses is trying to do is reach the sinners who are part of God's people.
Yes.
See? It's like the sinners in the camp. And I think we ought to be careful with that. Now, a broader message, like the one that Jonah preached in the Bible, Jonah goes to a group of people who don't know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, basically, in any real relationship way. And he says, look, you're doing bad. Stop doing bad. You could preach almost a moral, ethical message to a whole city.
I don't think he even wanted them to turn.
Yeah, Jonah didn't want him to. Yeah, he's like, I know you, God. You're just going to forgive them, and I'm going to waste my whole... You know how far it is to walk to that place? I'm going to get there. They're going to repent. You're going to forgive them. Why don't we just skip that part about me walking all the way to Nineveh? So, but the idea, remember this, God is merciful, long-suffering, and gracious. Rav Chesed, much loving kindness. Ezekiel 18, God says, I don't desire the death of the wicked. I want them to turn. So he basically ends it with, so turn and live. That's the message. That's the message.
Well, and there's a lot to the path that needs to be taken that has covered quite a bit of time and study to do. And that's why, with our mental capacity as humans, sometimes we are doomed to forget. And that's, I think, probably one of the reasons why it says that, you read the Torah, what was it, every
7 years at Sukkot.
So the closer we stay to the Torah and the teachings of the Torah, the more likely we are to stay in tune to following that path.
And not
You
forget.
would hope.
And not
hope.
forget.
You would hope, but we're talking, he's delivering this message to a group of people that were there when the Torah was delivered firsthand.
I
So
understand.
it doesn't guarantee it, but you're right. I think that
Well, when
as...
they were writing the Torah, they were making idols down there.
Yeah,
That's how the first Torah wound up in pieces on the ground.
yeah. So I do think that it is important, though. It's very important because people have been lied to. The Torah has been trampled under the feet of preachers, priests, and other religious leaders. And it becomes our task to pick that up and say, hold on, these are the instructions of God, and we're commanded to live thereby. If and only if you say that Jehovah is your God. Again, somebody that says, look, I don't believe in any of that. Okay, well, okay. But if you believe in God, if you want to live accordingly, and remember what I said today in the class, it's a wholehearted thing. It's not just half-hearted. Yeah.
I'll take the first 5. I don't want anything to do with the last.
Yeah, that's right. It's all or nothing. You're in or you're out.
I'm not going to look at that label.
That's right. Yeah. Don't ask, don't tell. Just eat.
I stopped reading at chapter 14.
Yeah. Hey, look, have a beautiful day. I do have some things going on today, and I know that you all do. You've been with us a long time. You've given us a lot of your time today. Thank you for your faithfulness, your emunah, for joining us every week. And we will be here Monday. The next thing, usually at this point, I'd say next Sabbath we'll be back. But we'll be back in just a couple of days. So I have to go tomorrow.
Blowing horns.
Huh?
Blowing horns.
We're going to be making horns. That's right. We're going to learn to make a shofar. We're going to live stream this thing on Facebook and YouTube. And we want you to be part of it. So Rabbi Rifkin will be here from Chabad, and it's called a Shofar Factory. And then after Monday, we'll be back next Shabbat. So we don't want you to miss a thing. We want you to be with us every time we go live. So hopefully you will be here with us. And hey, pray that I don't get hurt tomorrow. I'm doing something a little bit crazy, but
And that you don't gain any weight.
and that I don't look. I was.
Depends on how you live it, man.
Hey, that's right. I was 1/10 of a pound below the weigh-in tomorrow morning.
Let's see.
So I just have to be very careful, and I need to get into the 83 kilogram.
Glasses anyway.
Oh no, no.
Take your shoes off.
I'm going to do everything I can. So, but anyway, be that as it may, I am trained well by my brother-in-law, who is a world and state and national record holder, and he told me yesterday. I felt good about this. He said, when you first came, because he's older than I am, he said, when you first came in, he said you weren't really into it. You weren't really all into it, and he said, I thought he's just getting old and he's not strong anymore. But he said, now you're sticking with it. So he's trying to boost my confidence a little bit. So I have to go tomorrow. I'm sure Bridget's going to be there.
Boost your own confidence.
Yeah.
Right now.
Well, look, no, Bridget's going to. Bridget,
Post pictures.
she's going to post videos, I'm sure. She thinks it's hilarious. I have to wear this little muscle suit.
Yeah.
The
So
little tutu.
Can't wait.
A onesie.
my little onesie. All right, so y'all have a great day. Have a beautiful weekend. We'll be back at you on Monday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.